All right, so today we're talking about SEO and PPC. When I talk about SEO and paid search, what we're really talking about is for SEO, it's largely Google. So how do you show up organically on Google? Not those paid sponsor links you see on top, but how do you show up in areas where you're competing with everyone else and Google shows whoever they feel is most relevant or provides the most value to the customers or the users. On the other side for paid search, it's again, largely paid search on Google, those sponsored ads on top, but it also talks about other social platforms, things like LinkedIn, Pinterest, and things like that. And so the discussion today is really going to be a kind of broad conversation. I have a list of 15, 20 questions, and we're just going to let the conversation flow organically, but we'll do our best to try and cover as much as we can in the time that we have. So the first thing I want to do is really have everyone introduce themselves, talk a little about who you are, your experience in either SEO or PPC, where can people reach you if they have more questions? And lastly, just one hobby or thing that you do that people might find unique and remember you from. That's not weird and hopefully appropriate.
It's going to be weird, so
that's a little appropriate then.
So my name is Vlad. I run a SEO agency. I've been doing SEO since 2016 in the agency for the last 9 years. And then my partners, they've been doing it for collectively over 50. We've ran SEO campaigns for big billion-dollar companies and small mom-and-pop companies, as well as startups. What else should I say? We also build our own SEO tools, and I think that's what kind of makes us weird. And speaking of the weird, what I do is I actually don't do normal fitness training every other night. I'll do those bands exercises. So I think it's kind of odd, but I'm an oddball. There you go.
You kept it appropriate. I appreciate that.
I'm Shawn. Been doing SEO 15-ish plus years. Worked for huge brands like Alaska Airlines and T-Mobile, as well as some startups. And right now I'm at a startup agency that does local SEO, and oddly enough, for T-Mobile. So it comes full circle. Fun fact, I'm a fantasy football strategist, but not very good at it. I've never won a championship, but I've always been close.
All right, I'm Andy. I've been working at eBay within paid per click for about 11 years now in a couple of different forms, but that's where I know this guy over here back when he dabbled in that world. As far as the weird thing about me, I'm from Walla Walla, Washington, which is just fun to say for people who don't know, so East Side strong. And am I forgetting one of the questions?
No, we'll get into the...
Cool, we'll save it for later.
Yeah.
My name is John Schuster. I am I own an agency, a performance-based marketing agency. It specializes in e-commerce. I've been doing this for full-time since 2013. I got started in doing this. Originally, I had my own Amazon and eBay business back in 2009. Grew that, started helping other businesses, and kind of out of that, that's where we are today. You can find me, we're starting my name is the brand, John F. Schuster. We're also starting a new rebrand for the performance-based e-commerce called strategyecommerce.com. Fun fact about me. Well, I have my second degree black belt in Taekwondo, so that's pretty fun, I guess. Yeah.
So yeah, we did bring security with us.
All right.
Awesome. And I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Nicolas Garfinkle. I run a marketing analytics agency in Seattle, and I'm also building an SEO, predictive SEO tool that we're just starting to launch. So also dabbling on the startup side of the world. We're going to jump right in and start talking about SEO. So, John, if you can hand the mic over to our SEO experts.
The eBay guy, man. We go back a long ways.
I was going to say, love it.
So the big question on everyone's mind is around how fast Google is changing and what the state of Google looks like today. Obviously, with the inclusion of things like AI and AI overviews, there's been a lot of change, and the future is looking, it's looking bleak. So talk a little bit about what the state of SEO is and how that's changed in your mind.
Way to bring me down, Yeah, not as fun. Zero-click search, right? That's the hottest thing in SEO, obviously, right now, where, as you guys know, when you used to search for something, it would always be websites. Now, Google is more and more, basically giving you the answer before you get to jump into a website. I think Greta actually kind of aptly, briefly kind of pointed to it, and it's only going to get harder. One thing I was actually talking about outside is people are still going to, or not people. ChatGPT and all these other big LLMs are still going to need to source their data from somewhere, right? You can't just source your data from another LLM. So that is kind of my biggest tip, I guess, to start with for people is you still want to be the authority, right? And you want to do anything and everything you can to hopefully get picked up. And they've picked up on my tip here. They're trying to shut me down, so I'm going to hand it off to Shawn.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. You got AIs coming out there, but at the same time, I think there's AI whiplash. People are getting tired of being force-fed down their throat to the point to now they've learned that they could search with a swear word and Google will not show the AI overview because they're tired of it. So it's an interesting dynamic of where companies are forcing crap down people's throat while also trying to be cutting edge or whatever it is they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, you still have to solve the need for the customer. They're going to Google because they have a problem. They need someone to solve that problem. And so whether it's AI and you get yourself that little anchor link inside the AI overview, or they use a swear word to not show it and you still show up in the top 10 links, people go there. I like to say no one lies to their search bar. And that's very true. It is one of the best research tools out there, and it's free. So all the questions that startups you have, like, what are people looking for? Ask Google, because Google will tell you what everyone is searching for, and it's a free research tool.
It still works, by the way. And also, by the way, organic, even though it's not as as easy as it used to be in the 2000s, everybody wants to go in the backlink farm days. It still works, right? SEO is still a real thing. It's still an effective strategy, right? So take that, PPC guys. No.
So Shawn, I heard you say that everything's changed a lot, but at the same time, those core strategies are still the same. It's still create great content, relevant content. Even if people migrate to ChatGPT or other AI engines, well, they got to source it from some search engine. So continue doing what you're doing and you're going to be successful. Like, do you think that's the mantra that most businesses are starting to follow, or are people really starting to change their strategy?
I think you're going to get a mix. Some people are going to try to jump on that new bandwagon, AI this, AI that, and try to push that out. But I think if you still stick to the fundamentals, you created good content, you have good technical structure of your website, Google is going to crawl it, Google's going to find your content, and you will show up. Obviously, there's little nuances in there as well. You have entity search and intent search and things like that I think are kind of leaning towards those new strategies. But I think at the very end, like I say, the fundamentals still work really, really well.
We do a lot of SEO too. And one of the things that I think has changed is informational content that you would normally have driven a lot of traffic to your site, like maybe top of funnel type of traffic is declined. That type of traffic, it still will get traffic though. It's definitely less than it was before because a lot of that informational content, people just ask ChatGPT or Google's just showing it right in the search result. So informational content has been affected. But when it comes to things like opinions or stuff that actually, like you're saying, like content that drives real value. We just had like our co-working space. We wrote an article which was like the 10 things that you must know about holding a holiday work party or something like that. And it ranked really high. The site went from an average of normally 20,000 visits, or it was like right around that to 15,000 a month, up to like 50,000 just for that. Of course, it died right when the holidays were done. But yeah, informational content has been commoditized. So thinking about that. But when it comes to local, which we also have a lot of experience with local, having those local service pages still help. I mean, you're still going to show up. You may not show up in that map result for your local service business, but you're going to show up in below the map result. So yeah, AI has definitely changed, and it's continuing to change things when it comes to SEO, I think.
And the last thing we'll talk about before we switch topics here is Google just announced the whole diversity update, right, for local rankings, where now if you rank in the local map, you don't rank in the listings. and vice versa. Like, how do you guys see that playing out? Is that something you think they stick to, or is this a scenario where they're testing something and very quickly going to realize that, we should still show the relevant content even if the person's ranking in the maps pack as well?
They've done that in the past, back when they used to have featured snippets. So if you had like the featured snippet, you had both, and then they took one away, and then they took away the featured snippet. So it's hard to say. It's very possible that they don't want to reward organic with 2 free listings anymore because it takes away from the paid. So you might have to change your strategies to make sure either you get into the AI overview or whatever that future product looks like, or you make sure you get those map listings. And if you can't get the map listings, then work on that organic strategy a bit more. Focus on the page, like the local pages, like he was just saying, or just kind of pivot. But it's still a little too early to know which direction that goes.
He did a good job answering that question, so I'll just give another short answer, right? And like I said, Greta said this earlier, we are finding, and they'll all agree with me, right, that everything is getting pushed more and more towards paid more than ever, right? It used to be, it'd be maybe like a paid search, a couple paid searches at the top, and then maybe some at the bottom. Now they've got local service ads, right? They've got, 2 different paid searches, and then I literally had to scroll like halfway through the page for one query to see it. So whatever is going to benefit paid is the way they're going to go. It's more interesting than ever. So I think that kind of sets up the paid sector.
Yeah, and I think even in the DOJ trials, I think last year it was leaked that the head of paid emailed the head of organic, was like, "Hey, we're kind of on the same side here. Like, you gotta help us out," which is really shady.
As far as the local map thing, I mean, local service. Oh, is that the local service ads? Yeah. So what we were saying though with the organic update, showing in the map pack, not allowing you to show up there too. I mean, I see that affecting, because most of the time the map pack is going to be isolated. We don't have how many of you here have a local based service company or a company that provides local? Yeah, so generally you're going to be favored wherever your location is, right? So if your Google My Business location is in a vicinity, say it's in Bellevue, you're going to rank better for Bellevue service terms for your business. But when it comes to like a lot of businesses, we have in the past we'll do pages for Kirkland or pages for Seattle, right? And those generally, if they're based in Bellevue, they're not usually going to show up in the map pack anyway, so I don't see it being too much of an issue. One thing though was coming to mind when we were talking about the AI and Google search being taken over and how all these information results being taken down. One thing we can't forget, and I've heard this so many times, what's the second, I think it's the second largest search engine in the world. I want to say it's the second, not the first. Google's the first. But the second one is owned by Google. That's right, YouTube. So that is one channel where I still go to search, and I don't see an AI suggested result yet, right? Not yet, right? But YouTube is an incredible channel, right? It's an incredible traffic channel. So, yeah.
All right, now let's move on to the paid search side of things. So, Andy, John, same thing with you, right? So paid search has changed dramatically over the last 5 years, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, but give us a little rundown on kind of what's changed, where it's at, how should people be thinking about it in this day and age?
I think just especially if we're framing it over the past 5 years, how many people here interact with Performance Max? Anybody, PMax? Okay, I was going to say if anybody's worked with Google campaigns recently, it's the number one thing that I think Google has been trying to make happen over the past while, and so much of it, you kind of read through the motivations of why are they pushing this so much? Why are they pushing this so much? And YouTube is such a huge factor of that. Google has all of these placements that they're trying to monetize as well as they've monetized search. And PMax is a way for them to do it across all of them. And basically, from a conceptual standpoint, it's amazing. I think the simplification Google's tried to do has made things so efficient for us. In some ways, I almost feel like Google's trying to make a marketer's life as boring as possible by streamlining all these things that used to have all these fun little projects we could do back when Nick and I worked at eBay. And now it's like, just trust us, we'll do it. And I think the biggest question we as marketers have is all of this streamlining is great, but when it comes with a lack of visibility and this kind of just trust us from Google, where are the safeguards for that streamlining? I think when we look at how to use testing, how to use concepts like incrementality And Google is trying to like removing the visibility into. We almost talk about it like the bonds in the mortgage crisis, where you put a bunch of good things together and then you sneak some bad things in, and if you mix more towards the bad things but stamp it all as good, all of a sudden you're left with a product that looks good on your end as a marketer from all your attribution, but when you look at all your ads and the quality of interactions, it's absolute nonsense. So that kind of like trying to peek through, how can we use PMax? How can we get with the future without sacrificing visibility and control is probably our biggest paid search question right now.
And what is PMax for everyone?
For anyone who hasn't dealt with this is basically a product that Google is pushing that would take anything, especially that has kind of an item base. So a ton of what we do is with shopping. So Google Shopping, PLA ads, you might know them as. If you ever go on any like mobile, like 2/3 of the page is taken up by this format, but it also appears in images. Traditionally, like this shopping format was our bread and butter, but what Google wants to do is take these feed-based ads. So a set of items, you might see like a display ad that pops up on any website that you're scrolling through that has maybe 6 items, maybe 4 items, and it'll basically rely on all of the same infrastructure as those same shopping campaigns, very similar with YouTube, but there's also other formats. It's not just items. It's all sorts of different things that Google bakes in and says, our algorithms can tell you how much money we think is right to spend on each of these, and we'll report to you a number at the end of it that says you've generated X amount of interactions, X amount of conversions. But they won't necessarily tell you where they came from. There is that trust of them using all these different properties, which on the bright side, you don't have to run 10 campaigns. Maybe you just run one and it does it all. You just don't get to say what goes into each of those 10 campaigns anymore.
Yeah, we use that all the time. The PMax. The thing with the PMax that we don't like is sometimes it just starts to go wrong. And it's like it learns the wrong way, and it's really hard to get it corrected. And PMax is, no matter what you do, I've heard different numbers, but a lot of the PMax is retargeting. In other words, it's warm traffic. So if you're really trying to get new customers, PMax can pose a challenge because it's not that great at getting new customers, right? Whereas like traditional search ads, where you're bidding on a keyword, is going to be better at getting new customers. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as your question, like how's it changing in the last few years? I'd say more automation for sure. Like now, like with the PMax, for example, in Google Ads, you're just adding all these different headlines, all these different images, even videos and different, and the product feed, and it's pulling the best one, and it's using, I mean, you could call it programmatic or AI. I mean, it's kind of using anything to try to find that best combination. And Meta is very similar. Meta is the same idea. You have it'll automatically, you can have like 5 headlines. In fact, you can use, I haven't used it with Google, but I believe you can too. It'll have AI right there that you can actually just like, you don't even need to go to ChatGPT. It's like, click this button, it'll generate automatically all the headlines variations for you right in the ad platform itself. But yeah, a lot of automation definitely has changed. Some of the tracking ability, are still like issues more than ever, I think, with attribution. Some of that stuff has been fixed, but it's still not the same. Attribution with all the multi-devices, iOS changes, we're still kind of dealing with some of that stuff, I think.
Awesome, thank you. We're going to hand that back over to the SEO folks. And now we have some of the more fun questions that I think the audience is going to appreciate.
And I want to add this to the ad side because I have ran a couple
please.
campaigns as well. It's also becoming more competitive on the ad side than ever. Some of our clients, I get this quite a bit where, like literally last month, they were doing $10 million a year. They're trying to do 15, but now all of a sudden, they're just, because of LSAs and local ads, right? There's just more competitors because of the AI John was talking about, right? And now their cost per click, how much it costs to actually advertise has skyrocketed. So that's one other byproduct of AI. So it's democratizing everything and then is making more competitive. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, please. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the edge that you're getting from, a marketer who knows every little facet of the tool and the settings and everything to run this thing the way you need to run it all of a sudden starts to go away because everyone's playing the same game. And the only game is feed us your conversion data and tell us how much it's worth. All right. So we're gonna do a fun thing here. You each are starting a startup tomorrow, and you're gonna tell us in 1 to 2 sentences what that startup is. And then the most important thing is, I want to know what you're gonna do in the first 60 days of that startup from an SEO perspective.
I'm starting Tesla because it doesn't exist yet in my example. And then no. If I was starting a startup, it would realistically, I have to go realistic, right? Because that's my brain. It would most likely be a MarTech company because we're building our own internal tools, so we make them external. And then the question was, what would I do to kick it off through like a search?
Like what you have a finite amount of time. Like what time would you spend on SEO, and what would you do in those first 60 days?
This is a great question. This is great for you guys in the startup world. SEO will actually, as an SEO, I'll tell you, it's not going to solve all your problems, right? Customer discovery is where I would start actually, and I would see if my audience is actually using SEO to make those purchasing decisions, especially on the B2B side. Things can get insanely competitive. You guys have all seen HubSpot, right? They're basically spending mountains of money on SEO. So you'd really have to, I'd start with a competitor analysis, and I'd look at the domain authority of the competitors to see how much money would I actually have to spend if I could actually make any traction through this SEO channel. If I couldn't, then what I would do is a very simple thing. It's not even arguably SEO. It's probably more, John would love this. I would just start like a blog around this, right? And build up an influencer persona, and I would shoot out an email to like a newsletter following. It's less SEO if it's too competitive in my niche, right? Otherwise, if I do have kind of traffic, I think that basically isn't valuable. For instance, Porch.com, they were the first in their category, right? And the traffic wasn't as valuable. Then I would start putting a lot of money in the campaign. But you got to start with the research. I'm sorry, Shawn, I got the first crack, so I feel like I got cheated on the answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's really good. So let's say if we're already done what Vlad mentioned, and you've already got the product, you've done the consumer research and things like that, you do have to make a website. How do you do it? The fundamentals. You want a strong technical website that Google can crawl. Because if they can't crawl it, you're not getting on Google. Your internal linking structure, making sure that everything is technically sound, and then you just let it run wild with Google. You go out there, you find the influencers, write the stories, try to get the engaging content. It's going to take a long time. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. The startup I was at prior to this, when I got in there, they were getting maybe 15, 20,000 clicks a month. And when I was promoted outwards, because they got everything out for me that they needed, they're now up to 4 million. And it's just doing those basic fundamentals, helping Google find your content, helping people find that content in Google, and getting that engagement. Actually, that's probably the biggest thing is engagement. I think everything that Greta and I'm sorry, Angie, thank you, talked about is engagement. You need that engagement, whether it's social media, because that's what influences the algorithm. The more people engage with your content, your site, Google knows that, oh, okay, Vlad likes to go to Tesla's website. So Tesla is going to favor more
Big Tesla guy, big Cybertruck guy.
Right? So you notice when you visit a site more and more and more, they tend to rank better on your personalized search results because of that engagement metric. And I'm sure it's the same. I don't do social media too much, so I'm sure it's the same in the social media space. The more you engage with the brand, the more you see their posts either organically boosted or paid. So that's the biggest thing is get that engagement, because eventually you will start to get that traffic, but it will take a long time.
So let me ask you this. You both talked a little bit about doing customer research. You both talked about trying to understand what's working, what's not. What are those tools that you're putting on your website? What are the tools you're using to do that research?
SparkToro. So Rand Fishkin, OG in the SEO community, left and started his new company called SparkToro. Fantastic. You can use it for free in a limited capacity, but it tells you where your audience is. What are the sites to go to? What are the influencers and brands and things that they engage with the most? They look basically at the social media profiles, no longer Twitter, because Twitter, whatever. But I won't call it that. But they help you figure out where your audience is at. It's a fantastic tool. Reddit. I think the reason why Reddit is so popular because it is the Wild West and it is authentic, which is what you mentioned. is that people love that authenticity. And I think Reddit is probably one of the last bastions of that authenticity that you're going to come across. If you want to know what people think about your product or your problem, you're going to find a Reddit subreddit about it, and people either raving or ranting about it, right?
Not gonna let them steal all the thunder here. I need some tools too. Okay, so Ahrefs is another easy one, right? Or SEMrush. They're very similar there. Basically, that's where you can understand how strong a website is, and then also you can kind of gauge some traffic estimations. Now, keep in mind these traffic estimations can be off by as much as 10x sometimes on these websites, but how strong websites are, right? There's something called domain rating DR or domain authority DA. Traditionally, SEOs use that, but that's where you're going to understand the strength, and that's where you're going to see how competitive are these keywords that you're going after. Is it going to cost a ton of money? The startup, it sounds like Shawn was at, it sounds like they saw an opportunity where they had a really good investment return, right? Where they knew that if they wrote that article, it was going to rank. And some of these categories, such as if you're starting a CRM startup, good luck. Right, like you're not gonna. It's gonna be very, very hard to beat out HubSpot and Salesforce. These guys already understand, right? So, but I think somebody in here has like a bakery startup or something, right? Over there, great. That might be an open category because bakers, no offense to bakers, right? They're not going to be an e-commerce SaaS competitor, so maybe they're not as tech savvy with SEO, and then you can become that platform, right? That's kind of how Zillow did it. Actually, is realtors weren't as savvy in real estate, right? Now, if you're trying to start a real estate tech startup, now you got to be Zillow, Realtor.com is actually on it, but really Redfin, right, and all these other players.
Add a few more tools there. Google Search Console, it's a free tool. You just confirm that you own the domain. They tell you what queries are showing up, that you're showing up for, how many clicks you're getting each day, your average position. It's a really good tool for people to do a little bit of discovery and understand what your customers are searching. You can filter it by why, how, who, where, and start to see the questions people are asking that you show up for. And that's also a really good opportunity to understand, one, what your customers are looking for, and two, things you could potentially rank for. Microsoft Clarity is also another great free tool. You install it on your site with one little JavaScript pixel, and you can actually watch people move on your site, where their mouse goes, where they scroll, and that's a really good way to see, hey, are people coming to my site and jumping off the landing page right away, or are they scrolling down and reading more, and that's when they leave? Are they clicking around? Because there's so many places you could optimize on your site. And when I think about SEO, I think about like conversion rate optimization. It's not just getting people to your site, because that doesn't make any money for your business. It's what do you do after they get to your site? And as a good SEO, you own that too.
Yeah, and I've got a very simple tip. It's a tool you guys can use, and it's $0, right? So how's that for price, right? You simply type in whatever search query you think your user is actually going to type in. So for the bakery one, right? Let's say I'm looking for cookies. You click in the search engine right before you hit search. It's going to give you also other suggested terms, and then you can use that to see what other articles and blogs you can write about, et cetera, that are related for other query ideas.
Yeah, I think Will Reynolds said that. Don't hit enter. Yep. You just start searching one letter at a time and watch the suggested search. That is near real-time searches that people are performing related to what you're starting to type out. So yeah, don't hit enter.
All right, we're going to move over to the paid search side. So we'll come back to some of these startup questions for you guys in a minute. What's your startup, and what are you doing in the first 60 days to launch your paid search campaign?
Definitely starting with the customer, starting with the why and thinking about that, make sure I want to have the messaging right, just so that when I run the ads, depending on the channel, like if I'm going to run a social ad strategy, I think that becomes more important is really having the brand, knowing what your customers, what are the hooks, what are the things that are going to grab your customers and make them convert. And then a lot of times with social, which we do a lot of social ads too, it's also the offer, right? It's what are you doing to get them to take action? So they're kind of interested, they've seen your brand, but then you got to have an offer. You got to think about, okay, am I going to give them a free trial? Am I going to give them a 10% off? I think you can be creative with that. So if I'm starting a startup, the very first thing I'm going to do.
And what is that startup? I want concrete. Is it a soap startup, Tesla startup? What are you doing?
No, let's just say I'm doing an e-commerce product. Like I'm doing a product-based business.
Okay.
So, yeah, CPG. I got some, let's just say I have clients in these areas, so I have to be careful. Yeah, that's right. Startup juice, right? The juice that you drink and the gum that you can chew that will give you the energy all day long. And so the very first thing I'm doing is I am making sure I know who my customer is, because I want to know that when I go to my social ads and when I do my keyword research. Same thing for SEO. I'm going to try to figure out what that customer is typing in. What is that startup founder, the guy who wants my startup juice, what is he Googling? And where is he spending his time? On what social platforms? Kind of like we talked about earlier. Is he on Facebook, Instagram? Is he on TikTok? Maybe he's on TikTok. I hope not, but he might be on TikTok. And maybe, and so first I'm figuring that out. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to make sure all my landing pages are done. Make sure I have, and now the first step is good landing pages, good copy that kind of converts, that makes them, and I'm going to test that. Then I'm going to set up some ads. I'm going to, at the same time, I'm going to start generating some content for SEO. I'm going to try to build some at least foundational service pages with some supporting blogs, even though I know the blogs aren't really going to rank that well. And then I'm going to run those ads, and I'm going to test my messaging. I'm going to test it with engagement as well. So engagement, this is talking about Meta, because you wouldn't really get this on Google. I'm going to test on Meta my ads with engagement. So just like I could do organic posts, and I may do that too, I'm going to run them. I'm going to see what messaging is most engaging to that customer that I'm trying to target, the one I identified. And then I'm going to run a conversion ad and try to get them to actually convert, and that's going to have my offer, and I'm going to test a few different offers and get that. On Google, I'm probably going to be a little more careful, because I can spend a lot of money very quickly on Google, which you can on Meta, but you can test much cheaper on Meta, in my opinion. So anyway, that's kind of what I do, and I would hope I would start getting some sales, and yeah, and I would retarget all those people too. So yeah.
Well, just before I forget, I'm glad you just mentioned Meta, because that is one area that has been also incredibly successful for us, and I've been very cynical about that for a very long time, but it almost feels like internally we talk about getting money to the little guy, because Meta, obviously the little guy compared to Google, but yeah, very much an area where a lot of folks we talk to where Meta has been really bringing their game together as far as the level of transparency they have for marketers, and just the level of the product they're putting out is very different than 5 years ago. Going back to Nick's question originally, because that was the hardest one of the bunch as far as startup, I'm going to start a very effective travel blog that's something like an Untapped for different ballparks in the country. Minor league, major league, going to have some sort of ranking system, food, beverage, the whole deal. And let's pretend I've already gone viral, so I already have a thriving website, tons of content there, not having to put that together. I am, just for context, the worst person to answer this question, because this website doesn't have 2 billion items. I think my entire world has been based off of this ivory tower of attribution and all these things we take for granted. But I think the number one thing is to leverage just the automation that we have. I think things like dynamic search ads is something that Google has gotten much better at over the years, where rather than having to pick out, to guess or use Google's services to pick out 100,000, whatever you want, keywords that might be what people are looking for, having the ability for Google to crawl your page and to figure out, okay, we think this is the keyword that you want to bid on, and then enabling you to span a huge amount of demand that before you would have had to use your own guesswork to find. So those kind of automated tools, and yeah, PMax absolutely can be one of those things. As long as you have those kind of, like, as mentioned, safeguards. One thing that comes up if anybody were starting a company right now is branded search. If that is something that you believe that you're, interested in showing up for your own from a defensive standpoint, that's one thing. But that's something that eBay has just been almost religious about for many years after testing, is when somebody's searching your own brand and you put an ad on top of your own SEO, are you really getting that incremental traffic, or is it just reporting amazing results and you're stealing free things from yourself, from our good friends at SEO? So kind of that level of, can you apply like a basic level of skepticism on some of those things? But it all starts with that automation, being able to leverage whatever scale you can get to from Google rather than having to guess yourself is where I would start.
That's a great thing you said, though. I want to address that. Like, is that really true? Like eBay, as far as branded search with their ads, they're really religious about making sure that they're not spending ad spend on their own brand search?
We have religiously not done brand search since about 2013, 2014, and it's regarded as kind of a huge internal fire if we ever accidentally do it.
Wow.
And not only that, I think the research paper was published online. So if you search, eBay branded search study, you'll be able to read all the fun mathy things they did to come up to that.
That's a huge one because Google loves branded traffic. They love telling you you're getting lots of conversions because people are Googling your brand, right? And through paid ads. Yeah.
And if anybody wants just an even more in-depth, there's a podcast there's a podcast called Freakonomics, if anybody's familiar, that did an episode on this. It actually does. They're about half accurate about some of the details there. It's a grain of salt, but it goes into a lot of that original set of studies that, like Nick mentioned, it was public.
I think talking about branded search, like ways to save money. I always think of a startup like I'm not like $1 million, multi-million-dollar funded startup, right? So I'm really going to be lean and definitely thinking about you don't want to waste your money on that branded search. And that's also why I pointed out with Meta, you can do much less expensive advertising, experimenting with engagement, and then moving into conversion.
So one of the big things I think people either often ask or make the mistake about in paid search is really around this idea of sample size, right? So you're trying to make decisions quickly. You need enough data to be able to make decisions that are going to stick. You hear the term statistical significance, right? If you have 5 impressions in one conversion, that shouldn't be a signal for you to go spend more or spend less. That's just not enough data. So when you guys think about, starting to run PPC tests for maybe a smaller, medium-sized brand like a startup, how should they be thinking about it? What's enough spend? What's enough impressions? What's the process?
I think for us, and even at the scale that we work with, we deal with this all the time. And I think one of the biggest questions is the metric that you're looking at too sparse? Even if it's like the best thing you actually want to drive, is there some other metric? Like, for example, if there's any way to see, does a quality of click? Can you look at something where did somebody spend a little extra time on your site? That becomes a more predictive metric than just somebody bought something. Especially if you have a very high selling price, you're not just selling $20 items on eBay. Your company is selling something where it's a 0.2 conversion rate is high. What are those metrics? How do you get between traffic and a conversion for something where you have a level of signal that is predictive and valuable, but not so random that you're completely shooting in the dark? And I can say we do not have solutions to that problem half the time as well. So I think the entire industry, every company has different versions of that. But if there is, engagement can be a very powerful tool in our world of trying to predict a conversion based off of user behavior if any visibility is available for that.
So put another way, for your brand, if you notice somebody spends more than 2 minutes on a product page, for example, you're going to say, hey, we're going to use that as a conversion signal. We don't need to wait for them to, buy the product themselves because we might not have enough conversions to be able to do anything with any kind of meaningful statistical significance.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think one thing too, in regards to reaching statistical significance, I think you also got to be careful about where you are getting your data. The ad platform should not be the ultimate almighty data collector for you. If it says you got 5 sales, well, go check the back end of your website and see if you got 5 sales. Because a lot of times it's not correct, right? And Google might say it got them, and Facebook's going to say they got it, Meta's going to say they got it. Ideally, too, I think this gets back to knowing your numbers, know your business numbers, know your media efficiency ratio, if you know what that is. Just know what you're spending and know what you're getting a return on across the whole business, regardless of what ad platform you're running on.
And we had 5 minutes left, right? Does it end at 4:30? Okay, so I want to move into this more rapid fire wrap up, as I call it. So I want to give each one of you guys 60 seconds to dish out as much advice as humanly possible to everyone here about SEO or paid search, especially for people who are building their startup, whether it's a brand new startup or they've been in it for a year. So I'm gonna count you down for 60 seconds, and I just want you to just unload on everyone. Everyone points at Vlad.
All right. 60
You start.
seconds is a long
You
time.
start.
You guys seen the movie 60 Seconds? Gone in 60 seconds? All right. So basically, So to unload, the first thing is I would play around with LLMs. We haven't talked about LLMs today. ChatGPT. No one today, for some reason, has talked about DeepSeek, right? Which I'll make sure we mention that on the next panel because I've used it and it's free, right? Great price right there. So I would play around with these things. Fun fact, actually, a lot of SEOs, they don't like using LLMs, aka AI, to write content. One of my team members hired 3 writers, and he said, "Do not use AI." And so basically, the 2 guys were kind of not consistent. One gal, she was crushing it. She was super consistent, and he loved her until he found out that he got tricked and she was using AI. So it is getting good out there, right? So you should experiment with this. But I'll talk about this more on the next panel. I want to give these guys time to shine. But AI, if you're going to use it with SEO or with PPC, I like to say today it should still be Robin, and you need to be Batman. Do not let it lead the show because it will crash your vehicle. There you go.
Great advice.
It's been mentioned many times by Greta and sorry, I'm bad with names, but do the audience research. Like I said, Google is the best free tool out there because they will tell you what people are looking for. So look for things related to your product, to your brand, to your service, to whatever it is you are doing. Search it. See how you appear. See how your competitors appear. Do the research in Reddit. Again, it's the wild, wild west. There's a hot mess in Reddit, but there's some good value you get from that. See what the influencers are talking about. Like, who are the brands that they're pitching? Why? Can you get them to pitch you if they have that good following, right? So use all those resources you get out there, like SparkToro, Ahrefs, SEMrush. A lot of them will give you free access. Get the data you need, do that research, and improve your organic visibility that way. Create those engaging articles, the content. I won't get into the nitty-gritty, nerdy entity stuff because that goes on another level, but AI definitely helps with the entity and intent searching and things like that. But like you said, don't let it crash your car.
Thank you.
I was so focused on listening, I forgot the question. What was that?
You got 60 seconds to drop as much knowledge as humanly possible on everyone in this room as it
boy.
relates to paid search.
A/B testing is your friend. Only listen to what the data tells you. No, I mean, honestly, I think as much as I joke, like figuring out how do you use data in a way that is not so rigorous that you're trying to approach it like an academic, but try to look at data in context. Like Nick said, it's like you're not always going to be able to go into a stats class and be able to know every answer about your business. How do you figure out how to ask the right questions? What is the limit of what your attribution can show you? Are you using Google Analytics? Do you have internal tools? Like being able to figure out what data you have access to and figuring out like the basics of A/B testing, of turn something off, turn something on, use some form of control to see did it help you. That kind of like database, like almost creativity has been the foundation of what any of our like innovation through paid search, even just basics has come through, is looking at data with context. Yeah. One of our favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I could back that up. What you measure will improve. I think I heard there was a thing where they just were doing a weight loss plan and just giving a scale to everybody, and they weighed themselves every day and they got thinner. So if you measure something, you're likely to improve it, right? So measuring I don't like return on ad spend anymore. I don't want to get into that, but the return on ad spend is basically how much money you're getting back out of your ad. But I think looking at it from that larger perspective of here's what I'm totally spending on ads and here's how much revenue my business is doing is important. As far as knowledge bombs, we use ChatGPT every day. So we use ChatGPT all the time for all content type. We have prompts that we use within ChatGPT that are almost half a page long, like really long. So don't think that you just got to say one thing, and you can iterate on it. When it comes to creatives, we love Canva. We used to use a lot of the Adobe Suite, not so much as anymore. We use Canva. Canva is an amazing platform where you can create lots of creatives, Facebook ads. You can even do video editing on it. It's not too bad. InVideo is also another one for video editing, video ads. If you're going to run Facebook ads, we've seen a lot of success lately with Reels. You want to use Reels, and you want them to be in the format of almost UGC, but not like some influencer that you paid to do a UGC for you, but it needs to be in the format of content that you would watch on a short or a reel. If you think about it, like, oh, I went to this restaurant. They don't tell you the restaurant. They say, this is the greatest pizza that you've ever seen in your life, and I just ate it. And then you want to watch it, and you're like, oh, what pizza place is that? That's the kind of content that you want to do with your ad, so you get people to stick. They want to watch your ad. It's entertaining. It provides value. Those ads work really well on Meta. So I think that's pretty good.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for an excellent session. Please.
Don't forget about accessibility. There's a large market of people that have low vision or limited visibility that use the internet. And that's a huge pool of money that you're leaving on the table by not having an accessible website. And they could also sue you for it, so you'll lose money. Big brands like T-Mobile got sued a lot because they took their time in making a site accessible. So don't forget about it. It's the right thing to do. It also benefits SEO very nicely. The RA labels and things like that are kind of little boosts in the SEO world.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on stage and talking to us about all this. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to reach out to them, over LinkedIn or in person if you're so brave. They'll be around, and I think we'll end the session here.